Good morning. I want to thank all of you for being out here this morning for another lesson from God's Word. And I want to thank Josh for leading that song because this morning we're going to talk about a heart of Thanksgiving. Hopefully it's on the nose because I was trying to shoot for that because Thanksgiving's coming up right here around the corner. And if you had seen me this morning, you might think that I might not be very thankful because my morning was a bit chaotic. So yesterday we had a little cranky man at our house, and I enlisted the help of some Caltons to try to distract him and get him a little happier. Um, Sort of works, but he had these little bumps on him. We're like, okay, just a couple, no big deal. This morning they had multiplied, and as any rational parent of a newborn, we freaked out. We're like, this is clearly something terrible. Leprosy, perhaps measles. Like we went through some crazy things. Obviously, all wrong, thankfully, but we're scrambling because we don't know what's going on, and we take him to an urgent care because we called our nurse, and luckily someone was on call that answered. That was a thing to be thankful for. They pointed us to urgent care. We go there. They don't look at infants. Bummer. That's not cool. Luckily, they suggested a place that did though, which was very great. So thanks again. But in this, it was a lot of things. We eventually got there, and he's doing fine. I should have started with that. He's totally fine. It's just actually just a ramification of having a cold, and it's just these little things kind of can bubble up from inside. Supposedly, that's what they told us. Cool. I'm panicking mildly less, but this this morning it was a lot. But then taking a step back and point out all those things that I could be thankful for, and taking a big step back, I live in a time where there's doctors that work this way. There's the internet available. There's so much information, and we've progressed to this point of where they were like saw it and were like, we know exactly what this is. Like the nurse practitioner that came in and looked at him was instantly like, I know what that is. Don't freak out. Everything's cool. So I am thankful at the end of the day. What kind of a bad feeling thing there for a minute. But anyways, not to distract too much from what I want to talk about. Um, but having a heart of Thanksgiving is actually just should be ingrained in our Christian lives as well as we go through just everything. And look over at Colossians chapter 3, verses 15 to 17. It says, let the peace of Christ, to which you are indeed called in one body, rule in your hearts, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ richly dwell within you, with all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with thankfulness in your hearts to God. Whatever you do in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord, giving thanks through him to God the Father. And I know these verses are typically used for like how we sing and how we approach worshiping God in that aspect. But riddled through these verses, like everywhere, is this idea of being thankful and giving thanks, and like kind of that's like the motivation even for what we do there. And I mean, I know Neil did an excellent job focusing our mind for the Lord's Supper, but just being thankful that Christ is willing to go through all that for us. Like at the heart, Thanksgiving has to be there in your Christian life, and that's what I just want to talk about this morning. And maybe it's a little Thanksgiving gift. I don't think this lesson is going to be that long, so you're welcome for that. And so just a little things I just want to look at this morning. And so it's not just about the food, family, and festivities, because whenever we think about Thanksgiving, and that's where my mind goes, usually like a sweet potato casserole or something specific. I'm like, yeah, I love that aspect of Thanksgiving, right? But it is a great time for Christians to remember to give thanks and show gratitude to God. And I think that's something that we can easily just overlook in our lives because we're so caught up in what's going on in the day-to-day grind that we do at our work or job or school, whatever you got going on. It's easy to kind of, I think, put God behind the scenes a bit or be like, I got to focus on this and just kind of forget a little bit about thanking him for all those things. Once again, back to my morning here, I think it'd be easy to be frustrated or upset or scared of these times, but there was a lot of things along the way, and I was trying to be very specific. Like I was thankful that they actually pointed me to these right things and these things existed so that I could get that all taken care of. Uh, and so this morning we're just going to take a look at how it can transform our faith and our relationships. We're going to look at 4 points. I haven't listed them here, which I know is kind of weird for me to do. Like, I don't know why I didn't. I just decided to change it up a little bit this morning. We're just going to look at 4 points, so there's not a crazy amount of points. And then at the very end, there's just a little application that I think you can easily apply to your life and hopefully kind of have a more thankful attitude as we go through life. And so the first point is it's not really a suggestion actually. So if you look over in First Thessalonians chapter 5 verses 16 to 18 it says, "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God for you in Christ Jesus." So note it doesn't say only when things are going well for you. And I know this is talked about a lot, but I like bringing it up because it is easy to be thankful. It is easy to be kind of this, I think, a good kind of Christian, if you will, when things are going well. It's like, yeah, it's like, thanks God, I'm glad things are going good. But this includes those times when it's not as good, when things are kind of going bad, when things are rough. And I think that if you kind of look through it the right lens, you can see something to be thankful for. Once again, my morning is a decent example, I think, because I think there's a lot of points where I could have been very upset and could have been scared and nervous and just angry, really, about just the whole situation you find yourself in. But take a look at it from a different perspective, take a step back, and there are a lot of things to be thankful for, actually. And that's true of any situation you're in. Now, are they always going to be as easily apparent as my situation? Probably not. There are going to be some very difficult things you go through your life, and some uh, w- one thing that I think hits me really hard is when a loved one passes away, and that one's always hard for me to be like, what's the good side of this? What is going on? Now, there's the one of the easier answers, quote unquote, of like they're not in pain anymore. They can get out of their situation if they were struggling for a long time. Um, if they were faithful, they've gone home. They've made it. That's excellent. And that sometimes rings hollow for some people, and it's something because they feel this loss in their life. And I don't focus on that too much because it's supposed to be more of a happy Thanksgiving thing, but um, those things come up, and just try to find something thankful to be thankful for in those situations. Luckily in those times, a lot of people usually kind of come and support. Like, look for the helpers in a lot of the situation. If things are going really bad, look for the people that are helping. Focus on the help that's being applied in those bad situations, and I think you can kind of see things to be thankful for. Um, then jump over to Psalm chapter 100 and verse 4. It says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courtyards with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. And these gates they're talking about where it's kind of coming into like the temple. And so it's like your worship time. So when you approach worship, we need to come in with an attitude of being thankful in this Thanksgiving just mindset. And I think that can be difficult too, which is why I want to brought it up, because once again, you have a lot of things going on in your life and you can kind of cloud yourself when you're coming into worship service, I think. And we need to actually have this Thanksgiving attitude right when we come in and right when we come here. And it can be hard with all the chaotic things going on here and the distractions of the building maybe, or there's some clunky steps going on upstairs or something can kind of get you out of that mind, or maybe kick you off, be like, oh, I can't believe I have to deal with that. We need to approach him with this Thanksgiving. If you look through the book of Psalms, there are tons and tons of other ones here. I just kind of pick this one just to bring up a point, because sometimes I find it hard to focus in worship service where I don't approach with this attitude of thanksgiving, but it needs to be kind of central to what we do. And so my little application, start your prayers out with thanksgiving instead of asking for anything right away. Just start by thanking God. I think in my opinion, a very easy one is just thanking him for the day, just thanking him for being alive, for just existing again. Just thank you for the health that you have to do that. That's an easy one that I think most of us most days can take advantage of. But there's always something you can start with. So that is just my one little tip. Start with Thanksgiving first. You can certainly petition him and put your worries on him. That is absolutely part of the relationship with God and praying to him, but just start with some thanksgiving first. And I think it'll change your attitude and mindset as you go through even that individual prayer. The second thing I want to talk about is it helps protect us against sin. So if you look over in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 6, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and pleading with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And there's going to be a lot of references to prayer in this sermon as I go through Thanksgiving, because that's one of the main way that we can kind of converse with God and show him our thanks is through prayer. That's the great avenue to do that. And this one, particularly, I want to talk about it, uh, what anxiety can cause. And usually that anxiety and that discontent and that feeling of bad, it means that you're not happy with your current situation in life. And that can easily lead you to being envious of other people's situations, or to get kind of jealous of what other people have. And then that can cause you to try to solve that with these earthly, these temporal things, because you're like, oh, like what could they have? I kind of want that. If you just are thankful for what you have, you won't feel all that envy, all that negative emotion. You won't feel that. So being grateful and being thankful is a good shield against that. It's kind of a first line defense, in my opinion, because if you can be content with what you have, you're great as you are. And it's interesting because, and I'm quoting from an article here because this hurts my feeling. They said there was a survey done a long time ago in 1992, and I'm like, I was alive, and I was like, oh, it hit me for real. And so I didn't like I didn't like that. But anyways, a long time ago when the survey was done, they talked to people in their income, and they talked to people that had an income of around 50,000, and they were like, what would you need to acquire, like to achieve the American dream? Like, how much money would you have to have? And they're like 100,000 would make me happy. Like, cool. They also in the same survey asked people that made 100,000 or thereabouts, and they were like, what do you need to be happy? And they're like, about 200. And so the, the main point is we basically think that we need double what we have to be happy. And so if you're always in this discontented state where you're like, I got to get more and more and more, you can always multiply is the thing. And it doesn't matter how much more temporal, physical wealth things you add to your life, you're still going to feel like you want more, just like those people. And they didn't ask anyone that made 200, but I bet it would be the same idea of like, you always want more because as soon as you get there, the things that you get in your life, you kind of like, oh, I'm in this different class of people now. I can afford these. Be happy with what you've been blessed with, because we're very blessed here. And I'd say this often when I'm up here for the Lord's Supper or talking about the contribution specifically. Like this country is very wealthy. We have a lot of great things here, a lot of things we take advantage of, and we need to be thankful for all those things. And specifically this point, if you get discontented and try to fill it with other things, usually that means God takes a back seat here. And usually you have to give in to other temptations or these other kind of ways to kind of go about it. And that's how this can help protect us against sinning. Because as long as you're like happy with what you have, with what God has given you, you won't feel the need to try to stuff in all these other human ways to kind of solve your discontentedness. And then look over in Romans chapter 1 and verse 21, it says, for even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their reasonings and their senseless hearts were darkened. And so this verse is, I think, particularly scary because um, they knew God, they knew who he was, and they just didn't honor him or give thanks to him. They didn't respect him as God. It's like they became futile and their hearts were darkened here. And so God is light. If your heart gets darkened here, that means God's not in there as much. That means that you're going to give into these humans. You're going to start serving man based. You're going to start serving the desires of your hearts, which are not in line with what God has. That's going to lead to sin. So if we just approach God and respect God for who He is and what He's actually done, you kind of block yourself from sinning, or at least give you an easier avenue to not sin. I'm not going to say that temptations still aren't going to hit you. They are. They're going to come to you in whatever form. He's tricky. He's very tricky, and he gets in there. He doesn't care that you're here. He doesn't care that you even know who God is. He cares that you worship God and that you serve Him as you believe in God. And that's the really scary part because we often talk about the verse about the demons that they knew God and they believed and trembled. They even knew and feared. They're still demons, and so it's like, man, like I believe in fear too. What makes me different from obedience? Obedience, following him and doing his will. That's what separates you. But if we're not doing that part, if we're giving into our own selfish desires, are you any better? Are you any better than those demons that believe and tremble? Anyways, a small application here is when tempted to complain, thank God for something instead. This is hopefully if you got something, you're like, oh, like I've been very wronged. Like you don't understand, Jordan. They treated me very poorly. It was not cool. That guy cut across 7 lanes of traffic, hit my car. I understand. Listen, I I get it. There are terrible things that happen. There are gonna be bad things that happen. Thank God for something first. Please just if you come with that mindset or that attitude at first, it can alleviate a lot of bad avenues of thinking and bad. Just do that first, please. The next point, number 3, is that it draws us closer to God. So if we look over at Colossians chapter 4 and verse 2, it says, "Devote yourselves to prayer, keeping alert in it with an attitude of thanksgiving." And so, once again, prayer's coming up everywhere, but it's the main avenue of conversing with Him. But a lot of these verses are always riddled with that attitude of thanksgiving. And once again, just in your prayer life, just try to start with thanksgiving instead and devote yourselves to it. This isn't just like a one-off thing or like, well, like they pray at church when I'm there and like I'm part of it, so that like counts, right? Like that's prayer. No, if you have a friend that you only talk to like once a week for an hour here, whatever amount of prayer even is less than that, is that going to be like a very solid friendship? Are you going to know what's going on in that person's life? Not really. I mean, you might get some high level notes and things, but that's not the kind of relationship we want with God. That's not the kind of relationship I want with God. And hopefully that's not the kind of relationship you want with him. You want this very intimate relationship with him so that he knows what's going on in your life and you can just put all your cares and worries to him and he can kind of help with that. But this attitude of thanksgiving needs to kind of permeate through all that and be kind of the core of how we approach him. And then again in Colossians chapter 2 and verses 6 to 7, it says, therefore, as you have received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him, have been firmly rooted and now being built up in him and established in your faith, just as you were instructed, and overflowing with gratitude. So it's not just like be a little thankful for like just the good thing, just something that's overflowing. I can just, it's out there. You can tell, you just look at the person and be like, wow, they're, they are grateful. They have that, just that attitude about them, just that aura. It doesn't have to be thankful. If you can think of somebody that just overflows with something, that's the kind of approach we need to have here in our Christian lives. And so just the little application for this one is just pray with thanksgiving more often. Just do it more often. And it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be like you close your eyes and like really concentrate. You can like say a prayer, eyes wide open for just a few seconds. Just be like, thank you so much for insert whatever thing happened there. Just it doesn't have to be this long, elaborate thing. You don't have to have all your SAT fancy words in there. Like God doesn't, at least I hope he doesn't, because I don't have a very good vocabulary. So just just do it more often, all the time. Because if you approach things like that and you say thanks a lot more, it'll just change your attitude, your mindset in so many ways that you have no idea. Just try, just try that. And finally, it shows faith in God's plan. So if you look over in Romans chapter 8, verses 28, it says, and we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And so I use this verse often, but it brings me a lot of comfort because um, if you are just thankful for all the things that happen in your life, just know that they'll all work together for good. And I bring this up a ton because there are bad things that happen. There's been some bad things, semi recently in my life that I was just questioning like why is this happening? What was the point? And I know I even did a sermon about Job. If you look back at Job and see all the things that happened to him, and um, I remember reading through Job the first time, even any other time that I go through it, and just expecting like I keep expecting something different to happen because in my head I wanted something different to happen because I wanted some like grand reveal of like, oh, that was the reason. Like now it makes sense. Like there was actually all the cattle had a disease that would have killed me. Awesome. There now I'm sitting. No, 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 that wasn't it. That wasn't it. And as you go through it, God kind of is like, who are you to question me? It's like you don't understand. I created everything. I have this plan. It's like, where were you when I made this? What were you doing? It's like, well, okay, um, solid point. I wasn't there. I don't have the grand vision. I don't know what's going on there. And I think even in our daily lives, we can see that a little bit. I've been a part of a lot of different like software development teams and things, and I sometimes I think I have a really good idea and I like insert it somewhere, and then I'll like break the whole flow. And it's because I didn't know the whole plan of like what was going on. It's because I saw my one little piece. And I'm like, that doesn't. I can make this better probably, and it works for my one little case. I'm like, this is like the best thing I've ever created. It's the best solution. I'm so smart, and I put it in there, and it like breaks the whole thing. And I wish I was like joking, but like this happened like a month ago. So I've done things like where you join a new team and you're just like trying to add things. You're like, I can add value here. And I think sometimes as Christians, we're kind of like that, where we jump in and we're like, God probably didn't mean it that way because like that doesn't make a ton of sense to me in this moment. Let me try to just like, what if we do it this way instead? God's like, you're messing with the program, man. Like, stop it. It's like I have the vision. I know what's going on. It's like I know right now it doesn't make sense for your little snippet that you can see. Do it my way. Um, and anytime I think about something like that, I think of my grandpa who he was a bricklayer, and I would bring up of it. He he always had this saying of he's like, there's a right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things, and there's Carl's way to do things. That was his name. And he's like, I won't get mad at you if you do Carl's way. He's like, you can do it the right way, still might get upset. And I sometimes think that's God too. He's like, listen, to you there might be this right way and this wrong way. Do it God's way. Always do it God's way. And so just showing thankfulness and gratitude for whatever we have and whatever he's told us, like kind of shows our faith in his plan. And if you jump over to Job chapter 1 and verse 21, it says, he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord is taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And that's the kind of attitude we need, where it's just like whatever comes our way, whatever's given to us, taken away from us, blessed be the name of the Lord. And once again, as if you read through Job, you know that he went through a lot of stuff. And he even, once again, had the option to like talk to God here and kind of like ask him. And God was like, you don't see it all. And so he still had this attitude in the beginning here. We need to kind of maintain this attitude as well in our lives. And so an easy application for us is to kind of keep track of all the ways that God has blessed you, especially during your bad times. And if you have to write them down, put them on your phone, whatever. If you can't remember them, just like list them out sometime. Because I think a lot of times we focus on either the very high or the very low points in our lives. And I think sometimes our very low points are actually not as high as our high points, or we have more high points than we recognize or appreciate in the moment. So literally just keep track of things that happen in your lives here. And I think that as you kind of add all the things together, you're like, okay, I start to see my picture's getting a little bigger here. I'm starting to see a little bit more of God's vision for me. It's like I appreciate what he's doing for me. So in conclusion, strive to have a heart of thanksgiving, especially this time of year coming up. Be thankful for all the things that we have. And once again, it's not really a suggestion. We're kind of told to kind of do this, and it should kind of be at the core of our lives here. And it can help protect you against sin while drawing closer to God. And it shows our ultimate faith in his ultimate plan. And I just want to end with one verse over in Revelation chapter 7, verses 11 and 12. And there it says, and all the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures. And they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, amen, blessing, glory, wisdom, thanksgiving, honor, power, and might belong to our God forever and ever. Amen. And this is just kind of a little picture, a little vision of kind of what heaven could look like here. And there's a lot of thanksgiving, there's a lot of praise being given to God. And if you're struggling today to have that thankful attitude to God, do you think you're going to fit in with the people up there? Just take a look at your life here. If you're struggling now to kind of be thankful for the situation that God has put you in life, reevaluate, take a look, and appreciate what He's given you. So if you've struggled in your life today or gone through some bad times here and are maybe not as particularly thankful as you could be, and you want to talk about those times with me, I'd love to. If you haven't been added to his church, we would love to assist you with that too. If you have any need, please come forward as we stand and sing the invitation song.